Kai doesn't perform like other idols. He doesn't sing a story first, he moves it. Before you remember the lyrics, you remember the silhouette, the way he hits a beat like it's a heartbeat, the way a simple step becomes a signature, the way the stage looks quieter, until he touches it, and suddenly everything has a center. That's why Kai's career is addictive to study. Because his power isn't just popularity, it's control. And control is never free. Kim Jong-in, Kai, debuted with EXO, later became a member of SuperM, and then stepped out alone with his solo debut EP Kai in 2020, an album built to prove one point. He isn't the dancer in the group. He's a full artist with his own atmosphere. Then came the moment every Korean male celebrity can't avoid, the pause that tests whether the myth survives absence. Kai enlisted in May 2023 and was discharged on February 10, 2025, after serving as a social service agent. And here's the twist that makes this story different from the usual idol timeline. Kai isn't just famous for being good, he's famous for being a reference, the performer other performers study. So in this 6-part story, we're not doing a best fan cams montage. We're doing a character file, his roots and why dance became his language, the climb inside EXO, the fashion world expansion, the solo era that sharpened his identity, the controversy cycles, dating headlines, sudden enlistment shock, and the legacy question, is Kai a visual performance icon? Or the blueprint for what a modern K-pop artist should be? Most idols perform to be seen. Kai performs to control what you see. That sounds like the same thing until you notice the difference. A lot of dancers fill space. Kai cuts space. He edits the air like a film editor. Pause, hit, breath, silence, impact. Even when he stands still, the stillness feels chosen. And that's why people call him a performance king. Because he doesn't just dance to the music. He makes the music look like it belongs to him. The public loves to label him as EXO's main dancer. But that label is too small. Inside a group as stacked as EXO, being the standout performer isn't only about technique, it's about identity. Kai's identity is precision plus mood. He can look elegant and dangerous in the same 8 counts. He can be sensual without being messy. He can be powerful without being loud. And here's the part that makes him different from many dance line icons. Kai never treated dance as a side skill. He treated it as his language, the thing he speaks when words would be weaker. That's why his solo work matters so much. When he debuted as a soloist with KAI 2020, the project was built like a performance portfolio, music and visuals designed to prove he can carry a full narrative on his own, not just shine inside a group formation. Then you add the next layer, fashion. Kai isn't just styled well. He understands styling as part of performance, how silhouettes, texture, and restraint create power. In his world, clothes aren't decoration. They're choreography that stays still. But being the reference comes with a hidden tax. People stop letting you be human. If you're always the standard, the audience expects perfection every time, and the internet starts scanning you for cracks, dating headlines, rumors, attitude, anything that turns a person into a debate. That's why the military pause hit differently. Kai enlisted in May 2023 and was discharged on February 10, 2025. The stage went quiet, and the question became brutal. When the body that defines the performance disappears, does the myth stay alive? To answer that, we have to rewind to where this language began. Childhood, training, and the moment dance stopped being a hobby and became destiny. Before Kai became a headline name, he was a kid who found a way to communicate that didn't require permission, movement. Kim Jong-in was born on January 14, 1994, in Suncheon, South Korea, the youngest in his family with 2 older sisters. And what's fascinating is that his performance destiny didn't start with K-pop at all. It started with something almost storybook. As a child, he watched The Nutcracker and began learning ballet in elementary school. Later, he added jazz dance, building range early, before he ever wore an idol outfit, before he ever stood in an idol formation. This matters because Kai's charisma isn't the loud kind, it's the trained kind. Ballet teaches control, not just flexibility, discipline. It teaches you to hold your body like it matters, to land softly while carrying force, to make pain look clean. Jazz teaches attack, groove, rhythm. Put those together and you get what Kai eventually became, a performer who can look elegant and dangerous in the same breath. And then there's the emotional layer behind the technique. His biography notes that his father, now deceased, was a key supporter of his encounter with dance, and that influence mattered deeply to him. That kind of early support shapes a person's relationship with the stage. It becomes more than attention, it becomes meaning. By the time he entered SM's system, and later debuted with EXO, the foundation was already there. He wasn't learning how to dance from scratch. He was learning how to weaponize dance inside pop performance. He attended School of Performing Arts Seoul, a place built to produce camera-ready talent, and that's where the idol version of his discipline hardened. Expression control, stage presence, and the ability to perform the same intensity again and again without letting the public see the cost. So when people call Kai the performance king, it's not because he has the best moves. It's because he treats performance like a language he's been studying his whole life. Grammar, punctuation, silence, impact. And once you understand that, the next chapter hits harder. EXO didn't just give him a stage. EXO gave him a global microscope, where every move becomes a standard and every pause becomes a headline. EXO didn't debut into a quiet market. They debuted into an era where competition was violent, standards were ruthless, and survival required more than talent. It required identity. And inside that pressure cooker, Kai became something rare, not just a standout member, but a benchmark. EXO debuted in 2012, and as the group grew into one of K-pop's defining acts, Kai's role solidified quickly. He was the performance engine, center energy, main dancer presence, the one who could turn choreography into impact. But main dancer still doesn't capture what happened. Because Kai didn't just execute choreography. He made choreography look like personality. He turned 8 counts into character, seduction without messiness, power without stiffness, elegance without softness. That's why so many idols study his fan cams. Not to copy the moves, but to understand the attitude behind the moves. Then he expanded beyond EXO. In 2019, Kai became a member of SuperM, SM's supergroup aimed at global markets, which placed him in a lineup where everyone is a top-tier performer. And even there, he didn't disappear. He stayed recognizable. That's the definition of star power, when the talent around you is stacked and you still create your own gravity. Now here's where the story becomes different from typical idol success arcs. Kai's fame isn't only music-based, it's image-based, but in a smart way. Fashion houses and magazines didn't just use him because he's attractive, they used him because his body language sells clothing like a narrative. He doesn't wear outfits, he performs them. Which leads into the solo era, the moment that decides whether someone is a group legend or a full independent artist. Kai's solo debut EP Kai 2020 wasn't designed to compete with vocal-heavy pop idols. It was designed like a runway plus performance film, tight mood, strong visual identity, choreography that becomes storytelling. It was an announcement. I'm not only a dancer in EXO, I'm a solo artist with a world. He followed with Peaches 2021, and then Rover 2023, each release sharpening a different version of his persona, softer sensuality, then sharper swagger, then an almost cinematic confidence. And then, right at the peak of a solo momentum, the pause hit. Kai's enlistment in May 2023 was sudden and became a major talking point because it arrived during an active promotional period, turning his rise into a cliffhanger. He later completed service and was discharged on February 10, 2025. That pause matters because Kai's art is physical. It's body-based. It's movement-based. So military service wasn't just time away. It was time away from the instrument people associate him with most. Which brings us to the next chapter. The pressure layer, dating headlines, public scrutiny, and the strange reality of being so iconic that even your absence becomes content. Kai's fame comes with a specific kind of pressure. He's not allowed to look ordinary. Because when the world calls you the performance king, people stop treating you like a person and start treating you like a standard. A standard doesn't get tired. A standard doesn't date. A standard doesn't make mistakes. A standard doesn't have complicated days. So when real life shows up, the internet reacts like it's witnessing a scandal, even when it's just adulthood. The biggest example is dating discourse. Kai and Blackpink's Jennie were reported to be dating multiple times over the years, and their agencies issued limited statements, often confirmations or no-comment style responses depending on the timing, which turned their private lives into public property and fueled ongoing speculation. The point here isn't gossip, it's the mechanism. In K-pop, dating isn't treated as normal. It's treated as a narrative weapon. Fans ship idols as characters, then panic when reality interferes. Some people celebrate, others attack, and the artist becomes the battlefield. Then came the enlistment shock, another kind of storm. Kai's military enlistment in May 2023 was widely covered because of how suddenly it happened within his active schedule. It created a wave of emotional reaction, confusion, and what now energy from fans. And here's why that moment mattered. His art is physical. His identity is movement. So the absence felt louder for him than for many idols because Kai's stage presence is his signature language. Removing him from stage removes the text his fans read daily. And while he was away, the internet did what it always does. It kept talking. Some people romanticized his return like destiny. Others questioned whether he would come back the same. Some treated the pause like a career risk in a market that moves fast. That's the brutal truth of pop culture. When you leave, the feed doesn't wait. New rookies debut. New fan cams go viral. The public attention shifts. Even legends can be challenged by time. But Kai's image has always been built on something that ages better than hype: craft. The reason people still talk about him during hiatus is because there's a body of work that doesn't depend on a trend. It depends on technique, control, line, rhythm, confidence, restraint, which leads to the deeper controversy of Kai's story. Not a legal scandal, not a tabloid explosion, but a psychological one. The tax of perfection. When you become the reference point, you're constantly compared by fans, by other idols, by critics. Every new performance is measured against your best performance. Every comeback is expected to outdo the last, and the audience rarely considers what that does to a human being. So the real storm layer is this. Kai has lived under a microscope where even his silence becomes content, and his absence becomes narrative. And that sets up the final chapter perfectly. What does his legacy look like after discharge? What kind of artist returns when he's no longer just surviving schedules but controlling his next era? Kai's legacy won't be decided by one comeback. It will be decided by whether the industry still uses his name as a reference 10 years from now. Because plenty of idols are famous. Fewer become foundational, the kind of performer whose style teaches the next generation how to move. Kai is already in that category. His influence isn't just a fan opinion. It's visible in how often idols borrow his approach to control, restraint, and performance as mood. And what makes his legacy stronger is that his artistry is built on craft, not trends. He trained in ballet and jazz early, then refined that discipline inside SM's performance system until movement became language. He built a solo catalog that proves he can carry a full world alone: Kai, Peaches, Rover, not just shine inside EXO formations. Military service, instead of ending the story, sharpened the myth. Kai enlisted in May 2023 and was discharged on February 10, 2025. That pause forced a question that only real icons can survive. When the stage goes quiet, do people still feel your presence? With Kai, the answer tends to be yes, because his presence is not only being active, it's being remembered as a standard. So what happens next is the most exciting part. If Kai returns and leans deeper into artistry, more creative direction, more performance-led storytelling, more control over his visual world, he doesn't just come back as an idol. He comes back as a creative director of his own myth. Because that's the real endgame for someone like him, not just to be admired, to be copied, not just to trend, to define the grammar of performance. If you had to choose one word for Kai's legacy, which would it be, icon or blueprint?